Hello, greetings from Pennsylvania. It is February, not a good boating time of the year, but it is a good time of the year to start working on the boat. So I'm in a heated hangar right now with plenty of space, and I am here to show you what I got from Big Air Wake Towers. I bought a Cuda tower. I was a bit concerned when I saw the condition of the box when it got here because, well, shipping and being what it is. But I open up the box and find that everything is extremely well protected, wrapped up well, packed tightly in the box, and all your accessories and directions come in one box for the tower, which is fairly impressive. And this is what we've got once we get all the packing material off. These look like the two main upright sections. We've got all the elbows to go over the top, feet for the bottom, and the top mid section, along with quite a large box of feet where it connects to the boat, and good stainless hardware, some aluminum backing plates it looks like, and the instruction manual. More once we start putting it together. So I've started to lay everything out according to the plans, and if you haven't watched the video on how to put the Big Air tower together, you should definitely check that out. I'll try and put a link in the video description here sometime shortly to lead you to that. It's very descriptive and it's a very good video. I'm not going to reproduce that, but what I've done here is, as they recommend, I put a little bit of grease around the fittings. This is the lower leg that goes into the tower, the sides themselves. And there's 4 set screws right in here. 1, 2, 3, 4. An Allen wrench that they give you. And these just go together like so. One more thing worth noting is that when the pieces come, they all have these little end caps on. The directions don't specifically say it, but you need to take these off. This is just for shipping purposes to keep the paint and the end of the tube from getting damaged. So make sure you take those off or things aren't going to fit together well and you'll be very frustrated. Next part of the insulation here is the top of the tower side arms. They have a joint, if I can get this in the camera, that goes on to the top that allows the upper bend tubes to go on. And the joint has a bolt and a lock washer. It's called a shoulder bolt. It goes right down inside here. And then this screws on the top. And there's a set screw. We won't put the set screw in and we won't tighten this down again. We're going to try and do everything as loosely as possible to try and get this together so we can wiggle the tower around and get it into place on the boat itself. So this goes in like so, and we'll just loosely tighten that up. And I've got 3 more of those to do. 1, 2, and then the same thing on the other side as well. There are 4 legs that come with the Cuda kit. They're all identical. I've prepped them according to the video with a little bit of grease here to help the top slide together, some tape to keep things from scratching, and then a mark 12 inches in so that I'll be able to even the left and right side. There's more of that on the install video. I wanted to point out on the bolts, you have stainless steel bolts, good quality bolts going into aluminum fittings. You want to put a little bit of grease on the threads of the bolt just to keep them from, help them to go together a little easier. These two slide together like this. A little difficult with one hand here, but what we're looking for, something like that. And when I tighten it up, I'll tighten it with the Allen wrench just finger tight, maybe a little bit more than finger tight. Not going to over tighten these yet. Again, just because we're looking for fitment on the boat. Want to make sure that everything fits together, twists, and is able to wiggle before we tighten things up too tightly. So this part is not real easy to do by yourself. I rigged up a little tripod kind of to hold the tower in place. I already have one arm on. I could do that on the floor. This H member on top is a little bit of a handful to get everything together. 2 people, this would be a piece of cake, but you'll probably see me struggle a little bit. Wanted to note inside the H member are little plastic sleeves. You want to leave those in there for sliding the sides in so you don't scratch anything. Those can be pulled out later or shoved through. Either way, won't hurt anything. So little plastic sleeves and a little bit of grease that I put on the tubes right here and here. And the tape is just for my purposes so I don't scratch anything. I'm going to guide one in. Okay, so there we are. I've got the tower, both sides, legs put together, and I wanted to tell you my biggest concern about the install is which way to put the tower. On this boat and with this tower, the Cuda tower, they say you can install this either forward facing the way it is now, or you can turn around and put it rear facing. I think I'm going to lean towards the forward facing. I've played around with some pictures online and things like that, but I'm not really going to know until I get it up there and I look at how it fits. My major concern is that with the forward facing tower, I have to come further back with the install. I have plenty of beef here to install in the fiberglass with the backing plate, and that should be fine. I've checked all that out. But I'm concerned about getting in and out of the boat from a dock because my windshield basically blocks getting into the boat from that area. And normally what we do, the dock would be somewhere around here. We just step over the gunnel and into the boat from there. If the tower and wakeboards or racks or things like that are here, I won't have any space to do that. If I go with a rearward facing, just turn this tower around, I can mount it up by the windshield, which will help visibility wise keep everything in one spot. I'll still have good visibility off my quarters when we're towing. But the problem with that then is the tower slopes so far back, I'm not sure if the bimini top that I bought with it is going to cover the cockpit, and that's really what I want to do. I want to be able to have shade up in the cockpit area. If I have a little sun back here, no problem. I have another bimini for the front of the boat, which is no problem up there. So I'm going to have to figure out some way to support this, get it up there, get it lined up, and just stand back and take a good look at it. I'm going to take a break until I get that done, and then we'll move on to mounting the feet. So I noticed when I set the tower up on the floor that the feet, when they're level on the floor, the top H-beam is also level, which makes it easier to lay out the boat. So I took my mark here that I made. If you watch the instruction video from Big Air, you'll see how to get this mark, and it's just basically a data point so you can measure off of. I have the exact same mark on the other side of the boat, right where it's perpendicular to the forward and back of the boat. So from this mark, I found out about where I wanted my front foot of the tower to go. And this is not rocket science. It could be plus or minus 2 inches either direction. I looked inside to make sure that I've got access to it and there's nothing in the way if I drill a hole and want to put the backing plates in. So this is good. And then 40 inches is about the span of this particular tower's feet. So I went from here back 40 inches and then leveled the boat, the floor of the boat, so that it's sitting level here on the concrete. So with the boat level and my front foot marked, I can now measure back 40 inches. I made a vertical line, then I took my level and I placed it across where I think I want the front foot, leveled it out, and I made a horizontal line as well. So now if I drill here and here, 40 inches apart, they'll be level, and the tower then will sit level and it won't be crooked one way or the other, theoretically. We'll see how that all works. I'm going to drill the front holes or the back holes first. I'm not sure which I'm going to do yet. I've got to go back and re-look at the directions. On both sides, I have these marked already. I'll drill these, mount the feet, and then mount the tower. And then I can set the tower up here, and I won't drill the other two holes, the front ones or whichever ones I didn't do. I won't drill those until I get the tower up here. Okay, if you remember these marks that we made on the upper arms, when we first got it out of the package, measured in 12 inches, and I used some whiteout so that it could be erased afterwards. Measured in 12 inches, made a mark on all four of those uppers. Very important, don't skip that step, because once you get it together, the tower will not be square unless you get all the top bars together the same amount. So what I see right now, if you can see this, about 2.5 inches here, about 2.5 to 3 inches here, and the same on either side. And I'm using a ratchet strap to pull these together. It worked a lot better than just muscling it with my hands. So watch over here, if you can see this. And as I ratchet this in, very easily it moves together. Now the tower, so this is about 2.5 inches here and only about an inch, inch and a quarter up here, the tower's not square. And if you didn't have those marks, you would never know that, because it's almost impossible to measure around that radius of the turn. So those marks are very important, found that out. All right, now what I'm doing is I'm trying to get my base down to about 89 inches, which is going to give me a preload on the tower, a squeeze, if you will, of about 5 inches. And that'll strengthen the tower and keep it from wibbly-wobbling around on the boat. So those are all in the other video that I keep referencing. You can check out how to do that. But the practicality of it is this is a pretty nice trick on how to pull those together, and those marks, like I said, are very pertinent. So I'm ready to drill the H-beam and solidify the legs together. I measured from my marks. I have my preload set at about 5 inches, and what I'm going to do now is drill these holes out. I put an 1/8 inch bit through both sides to pre-drill it, and now I'm going to do a 3/8 bit. It's a 3/8 stainless steel bolt, so I'll have to ream the hole just a little bit to make it fit in nice and straight, but let's see what happens here. And that's that. There's a lock nut to go on the back. I'm going to finish out all 8 of these holes, and then we'll be able to stand the tower up and work on the bottom side. So here are the feet and how they assemble. We have the swivel bracket that goes on, and we can mount that either way. It'll swivel on the boat, so it doesn't matter. There's a shoulder nut, shoulder bolt, and a lock washer that go on here. This is my first installation for sizing, so I will not be using Loctite on these particularly. I want those to be able to move around, but the studs that go into the base itself, the feet, they have an Allen wrench on one side, and these are going to go in and stay in. So I'm going to use some red Loctite. There's medium strength and permanent strength. The red stuff is what I'm going to use. Make sure I get it on the right side of the bolt. And I'll be threading that into the base. Just a little dab will do ya. Doesn't take much. I just cut that with a razor blade. They did come with 2 different rubber gaskets that go on the outside of the boat. So your boat would be here. This goes in, backing plate and a nut on here, and then the tower foot bolts to here. Because of the contour of my boat, on one side only, I needed to contour that gasket just a shave. If you can see that, it's just barely a little bit, and that fits real nice with the trim. I'm going to do the same thing to this foot, put it together, and then we'll go look at what they look like on the actual boat. So I had the hole drilled for the back feet, decided to do those first. And went through here. There's a little over 3/8 of an inch thickness, which is what the tower company recommended. However, I am going to use the backing plate, which is also recommended, and I had to contour the backing plate to fit in behind here because the inside profile is just a little bit different. So profiled that, contoured that to fit in the back side, and this is an addition that I'm going to do. I'm going to lay up some cut strand fiberglass, just a very thin piece of cut strand. I'm going to put the epoxy resin on that, put this together, and then this will all lay up inside the boat itself, and that will help to bond the plate to the existing fiberglass, and it will take out any air gaps or spaces that are in there. That resin will harden. It'll be basically effectively one solid piece inside. So I mixed up the epoxy resin. You have about 10 minutes to use this stuff before it starts to get hot and hard. So there's not a whole lot of time to mess around. I have my sheet of cut strand fiberglass and my aluminum plate, and that's going to go on this side. So all I'm going to do is make a bit of a mess here. Alright, inside we have the mounting plate with the cut strand fiberglass up against the hole, and I'm just patting that down, taking out any runs, and I did cinch that up pretty tight, and that's what you'll see on the inside. Hoping that that fiberglass resin will harden and give me a good solid connection between the boat and the bolt. So here we are. The rear feet were drilled, the mounts were put in place, the pre-tension was adjusted on the bar, the H-beam up top has been permanently bolted together and lock nutted down. We have the rear mounts that were put in just temporary. I just tightened them up, and now I'm starting from here. One thing that I need to do yet is get the front legs in position, mark and drill the holes for the front because they have the bolts through here with the backing plate, just like we did with the back. One thing that I'm debating now, though, is the geometry of the mounts. Because they have the swivels in here, you can put the mounts in at all different angles on the boat, which does give you some flexibility. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I'm trying to figure out what's the best, strongest way to put the mounts. On the back ones, I put them in line with the tubing, figuring that the force will be pushing down, compressing this leg, pushing down this way, and I didn't want a tight angle in here. On the back wing, because of the bend in the front bar, it kind of messes things up a little bit, but realistically most of the force is going to be pulling up. So I don't know if it's better to put it vertically like this or to put it in line like it did back there, and it probably really doesn't matter. I'm overthinking the whole situation. These things are pretty beefy no matter what, and you're not supposed to be pulling tubes with this thing anyway. So realistically, a wakeboarder, no big deal. Okay, the tower is now almost fully installed. I have all 4 holes drilled, all 4 feet mounted. The backing plates are secure with the fiberglass matting like I showed earlier in the video. I'm yet to tighten the front ones down completely and secure the legs at the joints completely yet, but the tower is pretty much in position. I wanted to talk about 2 things that I did not like about the install, and one of them was really just my fault. First off is the wiring. This tower came with some really nice internal wiring channels all the way up through, and for all practical purposes, there's a hole down here, channel all the way up through, and you can drill a hole for your speakers, for lights, for nav light, which I got on here, whatever it might be, and that sounded great and easy and wonderful, except I wanted to bring my wires from the front, the bent leg, up through, the tubing, which went really well all the way, if I can move this over, all the way to the top, H-member, piece of cake. Except if you can see this, take a look, my nav light is on the back of the H-member. So I would have had to have brought the nav light wire on the back leg all the way up through to the nav light, which would have run easily, but I chose not to do that. In hindsight, I probably should have. I would have had to drill an extra hole in my boat to get the nav light fixture up out, but I could have put a wire connector on, and a nice waterproof wire connector of some sort. And I wanted to be able to fold the tower forward in this install, which means all my wires I wanted in my front leg, not my back, where they're going to be pulling out of the boat and so forth. But in hindsight, I should have run the nav wire up the back tube to the nav light and put a plug in, so that if I need to fold the tower, I can just unplug the wire and fold the tower down. What I ended up doing was taking the tower apart 4 times to try and run the wires from the front leg up to the H-member and then across the tubing to the back side where the nav light actually is, and it was a bear to get in there and get things lined up. I had it at one point, and then when I went to put the legs back together, the legs actually slide all the way over to here, so they covered up my holes that I had drilled, and it was very frustrating. So long story short, think about your wiring before you start putting it on the boat. I did all this wiring down on the floor, which I'm grateful for, because I really did have to take it apart 4 times. Run wires up through, chase them back, run them up again, chase them back, go a different direction. What I ended up doing in the long run was I brought all my wire up through the front leg. I went to this place and ran extra speaker wire out here. It's just dangling inside the H-member. The wakeboard tower, because at this point I don't have speakers. I just wanted it wired in case I want to put speakers or lights or anything else in. I have the wires there, they're ready to go. And then what I did is I had to drill a small hole here and a small hole here and run the nav light wire external. Now it's a nice looking wire, it's got good coating on it, there shouldn't be any issues with that. I will seal these holes up with some good marine RTV, and I'll probably just zip tie this wire down to this top of the H-member. It's not that noticeable, but it's one thing that I'm not 100% happy with the install. Other than that, this baby is tough. It is tight, it is secure. Like I said, I don't have the bolts completely snugged down yet, but I'm very pleased with the tower. I'm pleased with the look of the boat. I'll show you some pictures here in a minute. But in general, it's in good shape, and I'm ready to put the bimini tower on top. I'll include a picture of the bimini tower, but I'm not going to include directions. It's fairly simple how to put it together, mount it up on top of the tower, and go from there. So I hope the video has helped you a little bit with my experience, both good and bad, and I'm very pleased with the way that it's come out. Thanks.